Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Hi, welcome that you're here. Amazing. My name is Veronica. I'm the host of the Conscious Relationship School. And yeah, super cool that you made it today. So the topic is going to be needs, how to determine our own needs and how to prioritize them, which is super important. And yes, awesome that you could make it tonight. So I'm actually in the UK, and I have another big meetup group in the UK, and so I teach from here, but it works really well because Australia is in a good time zone for me to do the same thing. And I'm originally from Germany, but yes, I live in the UK and I work mostly in English.
You've got your positioning right. What?
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna mute you guys. Sometimes there's some background noises. All right, wonderful. So how this works is that I'm going to share my screen in a moment, and I'm going to guide you guys through a presentation. And during this, I'm going to ask some questions. And yeah, you're super welcome to unmute yourselves and join in. Otherwise, of course, also use the chat for questions or comments. It's also really nice. And yes, of course, also if you want to put your cameras on, that's always really nice, so we can connect a bit as well. All right, awesome. So I'm going to share my screen now, and then we can get started with the presentation. So let me just do that. And also, guys, if some things are like not clear, you know, I'm really deep in this work, and sometimes maybe I'm using language that you're not understanding or something like this. So just let me know, okay? Like, I'm really, really open, and I welcome any kind of questions. So just feel free to ask. All right, so here we go. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard of needs or what that really means, but in relationship work, it's really important that we become aware of our own needs. And just very simply, what that means is that if you're not aware of what you are needing at any moment, you're gonna be unconscious why you have certain emotions, you know, and that leads to a whole host of problems, because you are essentially sort of like going through life, reacting in different ways, and you have no idea why it is that you are reacting the way you're reacting. So it's essentially like a self-awareness tools, and it makes relationships much more easy. But I'm going to get into this in a moment. All right, so this is the agenda for today. So I'm going to introduce myself shortly, and then I'm going to talk about how you can understand your own needs. Then also why it's important to take self-responsibility for your needs, and also the negative effects of self-sacrifice, because we have unfortunately a little bit of a culture of people denying their own needs or thinking that for some reason they are not good the way they are. All right, so my name is Veronica Maya, and as I said, I'm originally from Germany, living in the UK, and I'm here a relationship coach. And recently I started to say that I'm a holistic relationship coach, because really my background is trauma healing. And so I approach relationships from a very deep perspective, you know, helping my clients to solve the root issues. And the beautiful thing here is that it's really helping with all relationships, not just for me with romantic relationships, but really everything starts in childhood. So I'll help many of my clients to have better relationships as adults with their parents, because it can really make us suffer, you know, if there's constant like conflict, or if you always feel like, you know, you have no boundaries, or that you're so dependent on the validation of your parents. It can really make us suffer. But many people also have troubles with their work relationships, you know, because, for example, if you have never learned in childhood how to say no, you're gonna probably have a lot of problems doing it later. So relationship skills are really like basic life skills that can improve our well-being so much. So yeah, if you're interested in any of this, you can have a look at my website. There's all my offers. All right, so let's get into it. So let's talk about what are needs. And I'm just gonna, I think one of you guys is not muted because I can hear some background noises. as I said, just when you're not speaking, it's better to be muted. But yes, if you want to chip in, just unmute yourselves at any moment. Yes, all right. So let's get into it. So what do you guys think? What are needs for you? Like, can you think of any specific needs? Just, so that we can brainstorm a little bit together. And as I said, yeah, use your chat or unmute yourselves. All right, so many people, when they start thinking about needs, it starts often with the sort of like physical needs, oh, I have a need for water, shelter, food. And those are very obvious needs. But especially in relationships, what we want to think about is the more softer needs, but very, very important, actually, I would say equally important, is, for example, the needs of connection, a need of respect, a need of companionship, friendship, those are all super important needs. And when it comes to human beings, like, I don't know if you know, there's this hierarchy of needs that one, I don't know what it was. I think it was maybe an evolutionary, maybe it was a sociologist or something, I don't know. And he said, oh, the most important thing for humans is our physical needs, As I said, first he said we need to make sure that humans are fed, clothed, and that they have it warm and so on. But actually, what happens for humans is that when you are a small baby and someone would clothe you, feed you, make sure that your physical needs are met, but they would not cuddle you, they would not hold you, babies die. And what that means is that for our nervous system, it is so important to have connection, which means anything from physical touch, from hugging, but also from assurance, understanding, someone feeling really seen. This is so important for us. And the reason for this is that evolutionary, we have always survived in groups. Our ancestors, they could not survive without other people. So our nervous system is trained to make sure that other people are close to us, and that they feel good with us. So never, ever underestimate the needs of connection. They are so important for us. And you can see this also, when it comes to mental health. I mean, there are so many rich people who have everything they could ever want materially, yet they are deeply depressed or schizophrenic or whatever it is. Why? Because their needs of connection and companionship are not being met. So remember that. Right. Yes, and simply put, when you look at this little munchkin here, needs are the things that make you thrive in life. So it's sort of like a little bit of a category that helps you understand, why am I not feeling good? What's going wrong in your life? Because when you are in this position, you will find that probably a lot of your needs are not being met, So it helps you gain more awareness, what's going wrong in your life. And at the same time, it also helps you to understand already the solution, because, for example, if you are thinking, oh, my need for self-awareness is not being met. Okay, good. Then I need to work on that. How can I get more self-awareness? Or my need for respect is not being met. Okay. How can I make sure that I feel more respected? How can I gain more respect from other people? And yes. So let's think a little bit about, what are your needs? What are your missing needs? And I have this great list here. So take all a moment to look over it. I hope you can all see it. Just gonna mute the people who joined newly. Yes. So take a moment to look here. So this is a really, really great list. And it's like, I think, quite a comprehensive list of things that we all share, maybe there's a different hierarchy for everyone, but in general, we all feel quite that, we need those things in one way or the other. So yeah, what's beautiful here is that there are sort of like these main categories. So one big one is autonomy, another big one, connection. Then we have meaning, peace, physical well-being, what I talked about in the beginning, and then also play, which I think is really beautiful, especially for adults, because we usually don't have enough play. And when you look at those needs, so for example, let's start with autonomy. So choice, dignity, freedom, independence, space, spontaneity. It's really beautiful because like when you think about, the nature of humans, this is such an important part of our lives, For example, many people have like died for freedom, no? Because we have this like striving to make our own decisions. It's a big part of growing up actually in puberty, why so many teenagers struggle so much, because they are in this, like I want to break out now, I want to be free, So, and then what is really interesting though, is that when it comes to connection, it's sort of like the opposite need in a way, So on the one hand, yes, you want your freedom, you want to be able to make your own decisions, to decide what you're going to do. But then, of course, you also want closeness with people, you want to feel like you belong to someone, you want to feel seen. You want that other people trust you. You want to be understood. You want to be nurtured. So, and that's actually interesting because in relationships, this is often like, how can we find a harmony here? That on the one hand, yes, we have lots of choice and freedom, and we can still be our own person, but also I want to be close with someone, I want to feel this deep communion and companionship with someone. And then of course that also means that maybe I'm not as free anymore, but the connection needs for most people are so important as well, So as you can see already, the secret to feeling really good in life is to harmonize those, and also to understand for yourself, like what is very important to you and what makes you personally feel free, what makes you personally feel connected. That's, I think, quite a nice recipe for like a good life. Then, of course, also a very big category of needs is the needs of meaning. And this also in our modern world, I think for many people feel really challenged there, because, for example, the way our jobs are set up, often we work in these big corporations and we, for example, don't see the product of our efforts. Maybe we just do a very small thing. For example, we work in marketing, but we never maybe see the full effect of our campaigns and so on. And that's also why many people struggle with mental health, because back in the days, when there was more physical labor and when there was more small businesses, it was much easier to see a contribution. Then, of course, also meaning has a lot to do with your spiritual connection. Many people are agnostic or atheistic, they're not religious, they're not spiritual, so they feel like some hole in them, So all that has to do as well with meaning. So, for example, like, celebration of life in some way or the other, feeling a purpose, feeling some perspective, like all this is important to our well-being. Then, of course, the needs of peace, that again is really difficult for many people. And I think this is also very interesting to understand, because in some ways we live, of course, recently there's also more like war going on, but let's say in our Western countries, we would say, we live in quite a peaceful society. But life is changing so rapidly. So I think many people struggle with the need of order because they feel like everything is out of control, because suddenly there's so many possibilities, and you have friendships completely different than even 10 years ago, and there's definitely a lot of stress. So I think the feeling of peace in general is off with many people. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then of course the physical well-being, and this I think is very important. Maybe here maybe the most important one is actually rest and sleep. Many people I think don't get enough rest and sleep, not enough relaxation. But I think always for sort of like what I'm teaching with relationship skills, they are like a bit less important because those are the big ones that we're struggling with in relationships. Then of course also the needs of play, to feel excited, to feel fun. Yeah, that's also when people get depressed, if they just forget that there's a little child inside that sometimes just needs to play and be super, super silly and not be just immersed in, be eaten up by all the stresses of life and all the worries. Yeah. All right. So I was wondering, and don't think about too much this, but just pick your 3 top needs for yourself and put them in the chat. And I know that, there's many needs, but just spontaneously, like right now, what do you think for you is your most important need? Today we have a quiet group. I also need a break, guys. Please work with me a little bit. Someone said something beautiful. Trust, authenticity, peace of mind. Wow, very, very beautiful needs. Yes, I can definitely, absolutely connect with that. Super nice. I think for me, it's closeness, to be known, and also fun. Yes, I love fun. And Peter says to be heard, autonomy, and play. Oh, that's also very, very nice. And here with Peter is interesting because he chose one connection need, one autonomy need, and then one play need. So yeah, it really makes sense, doesn't it? Jamie says acceptance, balance, sleep. Nice. Oh, sleep is also very, very important. Just says safety and respect. Just if you're a man, that's really interesting because I have also, like in my relationship coaching, I also teach about masculinity and femininity. And actually for men, especially, respect is a really important need. Like there are some studies that many men would rather choose to be with someone that they feel respected by and not so deeply loved because like they really suffer if they get disrespected. So I always find it interesting. Sandra says respect, communication, and trust. Alice says dignity, self-care, and safety. Yes, wow, dignity. That's also a big one, man. Like for example, when children get bullied in school, I think this is a big part of their needs that's not being met. When you're bullied, it's this feeling of someone is taking away my dignity, and it can be so much. I mean, it's even a torture method, isn't it, of people to take away their dignity, for example, when they were the slaves or something, because it really can break a human being. So yeah, it is so, so important. Beautiful. Yes. And when it comes to then in relationships, like some of the things you can think about is which of those needs are not negotiable for you in relationships. And why I'm saying this is because sometimes I think people, when they choose a partner, they underestimate how big of a role their personal needs play when it comes to how compatible are we, how fitting are we together. So, for example, let's say my own relationship. I used to be someone in the past that was really strongly looking for freedom and independence. And that's really still a big, part of my need, and I will really fight for my freedoms. But also I'm a super, super connection oriented person. And actually, it's so important for me to be close to someone and to be seen that I could never be in a relationship that doesn't give it to me. So if I had to choose, of those two things, if someone would put a gun to my head and be like, okay, choose one, I think I would choose closeness, And the reason why this is important is because often there comes a point in your life where you will have to make a little bit of a choice, So, for example, in my own relationship, I'm very close with my partner, and it's really important to us. But I also know that there are some things that I really have to respect about him, So, for example, I would never plan like a holiday without consulting him, just because I think that for our closeness, it's important that I involve him in those things. But understandably, some people would like freak out. They would be like, no, even if I'm in a relationship, I'm my own person and I can, do as I please, which is fair enough. It's not about judging at all, but it is about finding a partner that will also be okay with those things, because I know that my partner would not be okay with this, and I'm okay with him not being okay with this, because this is something where I understand it, and I know that we have the same need of closeness, and I want to be able to meet it, So become aware of that, because this is a big part of why relationships fail, and also why people suffer, because those needs are misaligned, And it could be that for example, for people that whose autonomy is really important to them, if they meet a partner who have the same, it's perfect, because they will always let each other have this level of autonomy that they're both craving, and then it fits really perfectly. But yeah, we get into troubles if two people have totally misaligned needs, because then it's going to be very, very difficult, because both partners feel like they have to give too much, Is there any questions about this? Yeah, as I said, just if you want to ask, just unmute yourselves, or you can also use the chat. I'm just going to give you some time to think if there's anything you'd like to know. All right. Just, go ahead.
Sorry, Veronica, that's a bit slow on the uptake, but that's a big list to work through. And perhaps you're going to get into this, but observing yourself and your behaviours and things that irk you, is this a good way to try and work out what your stronger needs and values are?
So you're saying you are observing what annoys you, like irks you. That was your expression. Yeah, definitely. That's a really, really good way of thinking about it, because your emotions and your needs are actually connected. I don't know, maybe there's another slide where I go into this, but so basically what it means is that when you feel uncomfortable emotion, annoyance, for example, you'll be like, okay, I'm annoyed now. Like, why am I annoyed? Like, what's happening? And then you can connect this with a need, So for example, I'll just use an example. Let's say I'm annoyed because I told my mom to come at 6 o'clock for dinner, and she showed up at 5:30, and then I get really annoyed. I'm like, oh, I'm so freaking annoyed. Like, what's happening here? And then I came like, okay, which of my needs is not being met right now? And then I think, oh, of course, it's very, it's about your own story. But let's say in my case, in this example, my mom, when I was younger, I always felt like she was not respecting my choices. So my choice is that she comes at 6 o'clock and she respects that, and also space. Oh, she doesn't leave me the space. I tell her to come at 6. I'm not ready at 5:30. This is too much for me, So that's like an indicator. Wow, that need of mine is not being met. And then the cool thing is that, you can choose what to do with it, right? Of course, one option is to work on your boundaries, to communicate this to your mom and say, hey, look, mom, my need of space is not being met. Like, I really want you to come only to the agreed time. Doesn't feel good to me. another option is also, if you want to do that, to maybe do a bit more trauma work and see if you can resolve the trigger, you know, because sometimes it's not so much about what other people do, but more like our own issue with things. You can become more relaxed. But yes, your needs are basically just the feelings tell you about your needs, and your needs will tell you about strategies, like how to change these underlying feelings.
Thank you.
Very good questions. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and Sandra asks, people change as they grow as well. How can someone communicate changing needs effectively? Yeah, so I think that it's so important to see ourselves as constantly like evolving, you know, and we are not just like one person. So when I did trauma work with people, one of the approaches I had, or the healing modalities, is called parts work, because you know, you have one name, you call yourself by one name, but you have many different parts of your personality, you know, and that means that maybe on one day you really want a hug, you want a lot of closeness, you know, you want someone to really see you, and another day you just want to run into the woods because you just don't want to be around anyone. Do you know what I mean? The same goes, for example, your needs will be different at work than at home. Like you want to be treated differently by your colleague than by your spouse, right? So don't see yourself as someone that has to have this like locked in needs and that can never change. Like you can actually always change, and that's maybe also a little bit of the problem sometimes, that, you know, people ask us to like justify our emotions and tell them exactly. And of course, if someone is really interested in you and you will have a close relationship, it's really good, you know, to tell them exactly, okay, why has this changed? You know, what has happened for you, you know, so that they understand, because if they understand, they usually are much more happy and willing to help you fulfill your needs, you know. But also other times people find it super uncomfortable when our needs change, you know, like with parents, this is very classical. So when I help my clients go through a maturation in their development with their parents, usually there's a time when the adult child wants to set a boundary with the parent, you know, for example, say, look, mom, I don't want you to call me every day. You know, I love you so much, but this is too much for me. And then very often the parent is like, no, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. And they start to do emotional manipulation, start to put pressure on you and stuff. And in these cases, then it's really important. Of course, you can explain yourself a little bit, but then you also just say, look, it's just the way it is. This is what I need right now. And you just got to accept it, you know? So I think it's this line between, yes, explaining if it is helpful, and also if someone else is really interested in understanding you. But sometimes there should also be moments when you should not explain yourself. You should just say, hey, look, it's just how it is right now. And maybe right now it's just about you dealing with this, you know? So so yes, that's how we look at the changing needs, so that you're always flexible with yourself, and also, of course, in different situations, and when there's like, you know, different parts of your personality coming out. Oh, Sandra says, yeah, very true, and how people can react to explanations, and that line between explaining and justifying. Yes, very good. Yes, the line between explaining and justifying, that's it. Dankeschön. Oh, nice. That's German. Really good. You know, it's so funny for me because I speak so much English, like especially this, because I was trained in this knowledge in English, so I can't even like teach it in German. It's really funny. Yes. All right, guys. Is it good? Yes. Again, if you have more questions, just let me know. I love answering questions. Okay. Yes, and that's what I just talked about. I remember. So the connection between needs and emotions. And this is especially important when you are trying to learn more compassionate communication, because if you connect emotions and needs, it's so beautiful. you can, set boundaries in a really nice way, in a way that does not immediately disconnect you from other people. For example, setting a boundary is basically telling other people your truth and your limits. And when some things are not going well for you, so for example, it's very different to say to someone, look, you're just being obnoxious. Like, I really can't stand the way you talk to me. Like, imagine, that. Or if you say to someone, when you use this tone of voice, it makes me feel quite annoyed and also a bit hurt. And my need for companionship and mutuality is not being met. Of course, you can say this a bit more natural, but just to give you a flavor of those two things. So that's what we call compassionate communication. It's one of the most important relationship skills. Again, that's something that I can also teach you if we would work together. Yes, there's this very clear connection between needs and emotions. And not only does it tell you about your boundaries and helps you identify things that are important to you and maybe where you need to have a difficult conversation, but also it helps you to say everything in a more compassionate, on connecting way. And as you can imagine, also at work, this is so important that we learn this, because it's so important that we start, setting boundaries with our colleagues and boss when maybe, they want us to work extra hours without pay, or they constantly ask us to help them, although we have no time for our own projects, or maybe they talk to us in a way that is not nice. But if we learn how to connect needs and emotions and tell them like this, the chances that someone will get offended or defensive is so much lower, because you are talking about your own experience and no one can argue with this with you. No one can say, oh, but you shouldn't. Of course, they will maybe sometimes do it, but what my clients report to me, like the outcomes are so positive here, because most of the times people are not used that someone says it like this, and it immediately connects you with someone. If you say, oh my gosh, I feel hurt, my need for respect is not being met. Usually the reaction someone says like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, like I want to change this, because of course they also want to treat you well. And very often also, of course, people, they act in a way not because they are mean, but just because they're super unconscious how something is landing with you, especially when it comes to like uncomfortable jokes. Most of the times people have no idea how uncomfortable it makes. And we have this attitude in our society that we just like don't show it. And we're just like, ha 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 ha, while inside we are like feeling terrible. And yeah, so, and that's also really interesting, because here in the UK, there's a big culture of repression, not ever saying anything and being like, yeah, I'm fine. So that's also a big part of my work here, is just to teach people ways to be more authentic, because it makes relationships so much more easy. And as I said, most of the time, people are so happy when you just tell them what's up in a nice way. And the connection is increased in the end. All right. Is there a question here? All right, so we'll go ahead. Yes, and one important thing to remember when you are thinking about needs is that desires are not needs. And that is a positive thing, because it can help you feel more empowered. Okay, I see your question. I'm going to come back to it. So, for example, your desire can be, I wish to go on a holiday. But a holiday is not a need in itself. It is a way to, it's a strategy to fulfill one of your needs. So it could be that, for example, you feel super sad and depressed because you can't right now go on a holiday because, for example, you can't afford it. Your boss won't give you time off because you can't travel because of travel restrictions, and so on, So there's different reasons why you maybe can't go in that moment. But instead of, feeling really bad about it, and sort of like focusing on obsessing about it, what you could also do is that you say, okay, which of my deeper needs am I trying to solve with this holiday? So, we can look at this list here. So, for example, it could be seen that, I want to go on a holiday to have more space. Maybe everything feels quite crowded at home and I just want some time by myself. It could be that I want to do it for some self-care. Maybe I have been super stressed the last month and I just want some, be able to take care of myself. Maybe I feel like I have never moved, so I want to go hiking. Maybe I'd like to find more balance in my life, so I go on a wellness retreat. So whatever needs it might be underneath. Could also be something like adventure and fun, maybe your life has been so boring, so you want to do something more exciting, do maybe some backpacking or something like this. Right. So once you have identified your need underlying, you can be like, okay, a holiday is just not possible, but you know what else could I do to fulfill this need? So, for example, if it was the need for adventure, maybe there's other things I could do to feel more adventurous. Maybe I could go to a bar alone and, like, I don't know, just start talking to a stranger, or maybe I could, I don't know, go on Bumble and find some new friends. Maybe I could go once a week in a really cold river and swim there, so this is like, it opens up the floor for you to get creative and don't feel stuck because you have focused on one strategy to fulfill your need, when actually there is a lot of things that are there. And especially in these times when maybe there's like restrictions, through like lockdowns or something like this, it can really make the difference between being depressed and feeling so unempowered, feeling like you have no own control over your life, and the opposite, feeling, oh my gosh, I still have choice, even if so many of my choices are limited, wow, I still can do something to make myself feel better. And that's so important, because this is the only control we ever have in our life, is ourselves, seeing our choices, seeing our possibilities, even if they are small. And that, of course, doesn't mean that we have to be okay with it, that we cannot, work to making our life bigger. For example, if your problem is money, to work on increasing your abundance, or if you don't have a good boss, to maybe, think about changing your job or something. That's not what I mean. Those two should work hand in hand, but it's a disservice to ourselves to mistake strategies with needs, because we limit our own possibilities, essentially. And this is sometimes like exercise that I do also with my clients, or also with my partner, and be like, okay, this cannot happen right now because of some reason, but how else could I fulfill this need? And that's also, for example, very helpful if you have, as I said before in the beginning, different needs in a relationship, So a really classic one, especially between men and women, is that they come home from work and the men have a really big need for space, because the way they decompress is more being alone, like there's this symbol of like staring in the fire for half an hour and just letting the day go. And for women, often their need is more to connect, to talk about their day, because this is how they relax. And so, as you can see, it's a clash, and people can get really unhappy about it, because the man feels super crowded and feels like he can't relax, and the woman feels super left alone, so what to do? And then again, you could think about, okay, what are the underlying needs, and are there maybe different ways that we can meet those needs? So a very also, again, classical example could be that the woman, when she comes home from work, that she is calling a friend, a female friend that also came home from work. And that's her person to sort of like connect with immediately after work, while her partner can, sit in front of the TV or something, or, do something else to decompress. And then afterwards they come together, and probably the woman still wants to talk, but then the man is ready, and the woman also was ready. So this is just one example, again, just trying to like open your minds a little bit to this. But it's very much up to you, you know, how do you feel, what do you need? And it's about like not limiting yourself, essentially. Yes, desires and needs, very beautiful, actually, when you start thinking in these terms.
Veronica, perhaps a little bit off topic, but the list of needs was headed needs and values. Are we saying that needs and values are the same thing?
I think that they are very, very similar in general, because for example, I would say a value is maybe something that a need is something that is more also personal. And I think value, you also project it onto society, right? Like, so for example, if your need you have a really strong need for freedom, you will also project this onto society, so that you say, and I also want to live in a society where there is a lot of freedom, right? And that's important for me. And for example, I want to make sure that everyone has a right to freedom because I need it so much. Or, you know, the same here, like, for example, the reason why I do these webinars is because I have such a big need of connection and closeness. And this is what really has made my life miserable, because for many years I didn't feel close to anyone. So one of my big needs is values is that I want to I want to show people how they can be more closer together, you know? So I want to create a society where that's also the case, because I think we should not go further in this progress of more disconnection, you know? But I think it's important also to understand when am I also projecting? Because, for example, I could run around and be like, my freedom is so important. And then I tell other people, like, this is what we should do. You're like ridiculous for not wanting this. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I'm actually afraid that my freaking freedom is being taken. And then we become like these horrible people that like just are mean to other people, you know? So it's really important that we understand, when am I projecting? Of course, you can still say, after you have really thought about it, say, oh, but I do think freedom is important, but you would not go around and be like, you're all idiots for not wanting this, but you would be more like, look, guys, don't you think that is important? You know, so it's like part of a maturation.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, very, very good question. Yes. Yes, and so this is what I basically said in the last slide as well, is that if you are really struggling to get one of your desires met because it's just not possible, then trace your desire into your underlying needs using the needs list, you know. So actually I say this to all my clients, and it's also my own house, like we have this list printed out. First of all, because sometimes, as I said, when we feel uncomfortable emotions, we can be like, okay, which of my needs are not being met? What do I need right now? But then also, if my desire cannot be met at that moment, that I can think, okay, what's underlying there, and how else could I do this? Another really good example that also just came to my mind was, for example, what if you are not in a relationship, you're single, and you have this really big needs of closeness for yourself, you know? So, for example, when we do like trauma work with people, a big part of this is actually to help them to learn to self-soothe, because many people have never learned this in childhood, you know? It's like the parents sort of like leave them alone and don't show them strategies. What can a child do if the parents is not available for any reasons, you know? So it would literally be like a very simple things like, you know, hugging yourself like this, talking nicely to yourself. That's a big, big, very important part of self-soothing, you know? So yeah, for example, if you don't have a partner, there's still ways that you can give yourself closeness. And of course, the beautiful thing is, if you start having this better relationship to yourself, you will also make yourself more available and attractive to other people, you know, because that's where it starts. Like, everything is our relationship with ourselves. That's the most important thing. that we need to work on. So yes, so connect your desires with your needs and your emotions, and it can really help you to be more empowered. All right, so the last few minutes, I just want to talk a little bit about, it was very interesting because when I created this presentation a few months ago, because I already held it, I think maybe like 5-6 times or something. And I really had it in mind because I don't know if you're familiar with the nice guy syndrome. This is essentially like sort of like a new development amongst men, where men have become more feminized in our society the last 30 years. This has like different reasons. But traditionally, you know, men were really good at saying their needs because it's a part of masculinity. Like it's men in general, or like masculinity means, you know, like a very straightforward, goal-oriented state of consciousness. So usually it was always quite easy for men to be like, hey, this is what I need, this is what I want, you know, and it's beautiful, it's good. But as I said, with the nice guy syndrome, many men also today are struggling to say what they want and need. And so this is what I had in mind, my presentation. So I did it. That's why I talk about the self-responsibility for our needs. But I found, and this is really good, that actually many people nowadays really see how important it is, you know, to stick up for their own needs, and that it's not about narcissism, because this is why nice guys, or also, you know, people pleasers, have a big problem asking for what they want, because they think it's narcissistic, and that of course is being regarded as bad. But I just wanted to put it out there, and I just want to talk about it a little bit, because maybe some of you guys are thinking, oh no, like I cannot think about myself, because it's much more important to think about other people. But the thing is that I always look at it that way, that if everybody is responsible for their own well-being and makes sure they communicate it, and that of course does not mean that you say my needs are more important than yours, but that you just say, okay, this is my needs and I'm aware of them, this is your needs, how can we find a solution that fits both our needs? But if we don't do that, if we don't communicate what we need, if you're not aware of it, other people, they don't know what we need, you know, and it's also not their responsibility to do it. So if we have this feeling of constantly lacking, you know, of constantly being the one that comes short, it's also about us, you know, because we have the responsibility for us. So I think that's an important mindset to have at all times. And it does not make you selfish, it makes you self-responsible. It's a very important difference. And of course, this can come too far, you know, like a narcissism, all that stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, just a healthy level of taking care of what is important to you. And yes, and the problem is that there are some people that pride themselves almost in being needless, you know, being, oh no, I do everything for other people. But what you can see is that in one way or the other, the need comes out, and often in a manipulative way, and that can be so painful for other people, you know. So be aware when you are doing this, you know. And I'll give a few examples in a few days, because it is not important to be needless. It is not, you know. So a very classical example for this is when I think that many men are super unhappy in their relationships and have never learned to talk about their real needs, you know. And maybe they have need for respect, maybe they have a need for more closeness, more connection, whatever it might be. But instead of then addressing this with their partner, they're like, oh, it's fine, it will just go on by themselves. And this is not to blame, because as I said, most of the time we have not learned this. But then many men, what do? Or maybe they go to prostitutes, you know, maybe they fulfill sort of like the relationship needs somewhere else. And that is like a very classical examples. Of course, you know, the same goes for women. They also maybe cheat in their relationships. It's like, you can imagine that the problems we don't talk about, the things we don't address, they come out in like other covert ways, and they are usually like really terrible. So maybe I say something about women as well. I did not wanted to make it sound that men like cheat more or something. I just wanted to say it as an example. Same could be, for example, for women, like a big thing that they do, I think, in relationships is that they are so unhappy with their husband, and then unconsciously they are triangulating their children against the husband, you know. And my mom did this, for example, and she was totally 100% not aware of it. And then I think a few months ago we had this conversation, and she was like, Veronica, man, I just realized that a part of me was like wanting to have you and your brother on my side because I was so angry at your dad at all times. And obviously she was not talking about her needs of, you know, feeling understood, feeling seen. That's her biggest thing. And yeah, she was not doing this on purpose, but the need always will come out in one way or the other. So if you are not feeling belonging to your partner or understood, you try to get it from your children. Do you see what I mean? And yeah, and that's often where a lot of pain is happening. Yes. And that's really connected with the topic of self-sacrifice. So, for example, the myth of the really good mother, you know, that never thinks about herself. It comes, of course, also from the obsession of being like a good person, you know, my children are the most important things in my life. Like, I don't need anything, I just need them and stuff. And while, of course, a big part of this is like also like a very motherly or also fatherly things. I mean, parents are super, super gracious, you know, with their time and energy. I mean, it's amazing. Like, I don't have children yet, but I watched with my friends' children, wow, how much time parents spend on children. It's incredible. But then, of course, if they are not conscious about their own needs, and that also there is limits, you know, to your time. It's normal. I mean, you cannot be like a Christ or a savior to people, or Mother Teresa or something. And then you forget that you yourself also matter. Then it can happen that you like identify with this, oh, I'm such a good mother, and you don't even understand how you're unconsciously trying to get your needs met, you know. So a classical example is that, for example, a mother or a father, they are always saying and acting in a way that, oh, my needs are important, you are the only thing, and they do everything for the children. But then when the child is setting a boundary, you know, maybe says, oh, mom, like, I don't want you to come with me, or oh, mom, like, this one I want to do alone, then they start to put the pressure on, be like, all these years I did these things for you, and now you don't want me to come with you. What is this? You are so ungrateful, you know, like, I did everything for you. So can you imagine? That's not really love. It is like, I do this for you, but I expect all these things, you know, I expect you 100% loyalty, I expect that you always do what I say, you know. And it is, that's what we call, emotional blackmailing, and also enmeshment, you know, because often then these parents cannot fathom that the child is even their own person, and should they want something else, you know. And it is just not fair, and it's not loving. And you can often see that when parents do this with children, the children later resent the parents, you know, and maybe even like stop contact with them, or they don't want even their children to see them, you know. And then the parents are like, but I never, you know, oh, it was so good, we put so much love on them. Yes, you loved them, but you also made them feel like they cannot do anything by themselves. And it can feel so hurtful, this emotional blackmailing. It's really intense. So be aware of it, of that. And then, of course, also nice guy syndrome. That's what I was explaining a little bit about this, because a big part of being like a nice guy is essentially that you are denying your own needs, and you pretend that they are not there, but then you are again doing it in covert ways, you know. So for example, many nice guys, they have this like a point system, you know, where they always like in relationships think, okay, now I cooked dinner for my girlfriend, and I did the washing, and I bought her a new present. Now she owes me 3 points. So she owes me, I don't know, you know, one time, I don't know, hoovering, and one time maybe, you know, sex or something. Like, they have this like point system in their minds. And it does not work very well with people, because if you expect something, you should ask for it. You'd be like, okay, darling, like, I'm really tired, but I'm going to cook. But then I would really like you if you could clean the bathroom tomorrow or something like this, you know. But it's not fair to people to do something and then just expect it. It's not a conscious way of interacting. And it really, like, people feel essentially like smothered, and also like it's too much, you know, when someone is doing this. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you have any questions about this? I'm just gonna quickly do like this. Just think if there's any more last questions. Yeah, there's a chat. I'll come back to you. Just I always forget my links sometimes. Okay. Yes, there was a chat. Just soaking it all up. It's awesome. Oh, that's I'm really happy about that. Yeah, in the meantime, I just want to put some links for you guys. If you're interested in working with me, I offer coaching and emotional healing sessions where we do exactly this kind of stuff. So my job is really to teach you relationship skills, you know, because yeah, most of us are like lacking in this. And I've been on a big journey the last years, and I feel like, yeah, it has changed my life so much. And now I offer this for clients. So you're super happy to check that out. I also offer a free discovery call. So you can just chat with me for 15 minutes and just see if maybe, you know, how we could work together and get to know me. And also, if you enjoyed this webinar, the second link here is Buy Me a Coffee. So it's like a really nice website where you can, you know, buy like a symbolic coffee if you enjoyed the webinar, and just support my work a bit. So I would really appreciate that. And you can also leave a nice message, which is super nice. Okay, guys. So yes. Yeah. And of course, also, if you want to support me, you can also write a little testimonial. Maybe some of you have been a bit more to webinars. And yeah, it really helps me because I'm building right now a website for also my conscious relationship school, because yeah, I really enjoy teaching so much and I really love it. And I hope also in the future that I can invite some experts, you know, so we have a few more people. Yeah, so you can send your testimonial with picture to my email address. All right, guys. So if there's any last questions, let me know what you want to know. And otherwise, I'll let you go on this beautiful day. I'm so excited. I see also now people I have spoken from Dubai and from different Asian countries. So it's really a bit spreading around the world, and that's so beautiful. Yes, also many Indian people I always see. There's also a big topic of enmeshment. So yeah. All right. Cool. You seem satisfied. So that's really beautiful. Okay, guys. Then I wish you a super beautiful day or night. And yeah, all good. Oh, cool. I'm happy. Oh, very helpful. That's really, really great. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Sandra says, thank you, Veronica. We are a quiet bunch, but I'm sure we all appreciate you. That's good. You know, sometimes I don't know, because I'm just like blabbling and I'm like, okay, I hope they like it. Quiet because listening. Oh, that's nice. Oh, super happy. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Okay, guys. Bye bye. Have a really beautiful evening. See you.
Auf Wiedersehen, Veronica.
Welcome. Auf Wiedersehen. Nice.